Waiting at the gate to go into Edgerton, May 5th, 2018. One of the members is going to come up with a key, open up and let us in. Well, we're coming up on the first bridge going into Edgerton, down near the Hunter Pavilion, and it looks like it's in pretty good shape. Actually, compared to last year, it's in excellent shape. Well, we made it into Edgerton. The two bridges are in fairly good shape. We could get in for a tour. And I'm going to shoot a little bit of footage right now. We're at the intersection of A Street and B Street. At one time this area was all loaded with homes and gardens where they planted some of their crops. Most of the homes had no paint on them, and they're all company owned. Joyce jumped out of the truck to walk in. It was a little bumpy on the way, and the road is washed out pretty good, but we made it in. We're on the road here, one of the crossroads that goes into C Street down near the school. But this field here to my left, it's all grown in now. It was a field back then, and they raised crops here. Probably corn and rye or whatever they grew. It was all in this area right here, which is all grown in. We didn't see any evidence ever of anything still growing in it that they might have planted back then, but this is the field where the crops were grown. Okay, we're at the very end of C Street, or School Street. And that picture, the famous picture, the only known picture of Edgerton, was taken from up on that hill, probably in the mid-1890s. And we do have a picture that David Kecklock took a few years ago from that same vantage point. Looks way different. Okay, we're coming up on the school foundation, which was covered over for many years by silt until Pepper came up here, oh, probably 20 years ago or more, and started searching for it and found it by trial and error. Looking at the picture, the vantage point from where the picture was taken from, and he dug it out by hand, and this is the school foundation. Okay, we're walking in to the school. This is where the door would have been. Not a very big school, but the rocks are still here. And until Pepper uncovered them, it was completely covered with silt, and nobody had any idea where the school was. Back in this area here was where the two outhouses were for the school. Quite grown in right now. And at one time Pepper did dig down, and he found bottles and stuff that were tossed in the outhouse. But he did do that about 25 years ago and found out where they were. And they were back in this area here. Looking towards the front of the school foundation. And still in pretty good shape there. The back end is open here. Not sure where the rocks went, if somebody dug them out over the years and took them or not. Okay, looking at the school foundation, and over to the left of it we have another hole here where there was another home. However, in the only picture that we have of Edgerton, this home wasn't there. It was a field, and there was some kind of crops grown in it, but the home wasn't there. This was put in after that picture was taken. Okay, looking at the picture of Edgerton on the business card right now. Okay, there's the school foundation. I'm standing back, and Joyce is very near where one of the outhouses was. And the dirt is dug up there because Pepper did have these excavated at one time. So it's probably somewhere in that area where she's standing. Another view of the school from the back end of it. This is what's left of the foundation of the house that was next to the school, but not in that picture, so it was definitely after the picture was taken. In this wooded section was loads of homes. Most of them had no paint on them, and they were company owned. In 1905, when they shut everything down because of the loss of coal, all these homes were torn down. Several were rebuilt, Mayfield and German. This road here is at the end of C Street, and it goes up and turns to the left, goes up the side of the mountain. It held the railroad tracks, one of the set of tracks that took the coal out of Edgerton. We're on B Street right now, walking west. We're going to intersect with A Street, turn left, and go up by the company store foundation. Right here would be more homes back then with no paint on them again, and all company owned. It's all grown in now. Parked the Jeep at the end of A Street. We're going to walk up that way now. More remnants of foundations of homes here on A Street. Somewhere near this pile of rocks, this foundation, Pepper had found a jar with coins in it. It was sealed with wax, and they dated from the early 1800s up to around 1900. Another view of that foundation where Pepper found the coins. Sometime in the early 1900s, Pepper said people came up here looking for silt, and they had bulldozers and backhoes, and they destroyed a lot of foundations. There was a lot of bottles that he found over the years, but right now it's hard to find an intact bottle. There's a lot of remnants of them. They got crushed by the heavy machinery up here. This is part of the pipe coming from the Hosey Dam, coming up from the ground here, when they used to take water out of that dam to service Mayfield and German. Okay, this is A Street. We're headed up towards the company store. The first tour I was on back in 2002, when Pepper took us up, we crossed right here. There was a bridge there that got washed out since then. But right up on the other side of the hill there was the breaker. It was very big. If we were back in the 1890s now, it would be looming right in front of us, a giant structure. And all that's left is a little piece of the foundation. There's more of that pipe that comes out of the Hosey, and at one time took water down to the towns. Company store was right down there. Opposite was homes. A lot of homes in this area here, all grown in now. All that's left of the company store, a little piece of foundation. Right opposite the company store, in one of the pictures we have, you can see a reflection in the window of a picket fence. So apparently back in this area here, one of these homes had a white picket fence in front of it. But you could clearly see it in one of the pictures that we have with the boys standing out in front of the company store. This is right where those kids would have been standing back then, right in front of the company store. We have two photos of that. The houses went on alongside this road just to the left of it, up in that area there, a little past that sign, and then they stopped. They're all gone now too, and just remnants of foundations. All torn down when the mine ran out of coal in 1905. A piece of metal here, some kind of an artifact that definitely dates back to when Edgerton was here. I'm not sure what it is, but it is made out of metal. More remnants of foundations here. And they were probably pushed around in the 1990s by those bulldozers and backhoes looking for silt. And this area here was the site of the Luxmore family home, where little Johnny Luxmore in 1994 fell in the creek somewhere in this area, and it was a lot higher back then, and he quickly washed down and drowned. He was throwing stones in, and his sister saw him falling in, ran to the mother, and the mule barn was right up on the side here, and the woman screamed, and men from the mule barn came out and ran down on this side of the creek, while Mrs. Luxmore was on the opposite side, and they ran down about 500 yards down this here way, and they found him drowned. 1894. And this area here was the site of the pay shack. And they would pay the men in silver dollars. They did not want the mine script. It's somewhere in this area here. There's no really remnants of the foundation, but it was here. And we're now looking down towards the road that takes you out of Edgerton. There was a railroad track that came from down towards German, came up along here, and this was one of two tracks that came into the town up to the breaker to take the coal out. It ran right along this wall here, this rock wall. Somewhere in this area here, again it's hard to figure out exactly where, was the mule barn, the other side of the mule barn. And the foundations have been pushed around over the years by the machines digging for silt. Okay, there's part of the foundation that held the trestle, the track that took the coal out of Edgerton. Not a whole lot of remnants left, but there's a part right there. We're headed up towards the breaker, the foundation, what's left of the foundation of the breaker. This whole area here was where the breaker was. And the largest chunk of the foundation's up top amongst the trees there, but there's a lot of pieces of foundation here. These rocks, all that's left of that once large, very large breaker. Looking across the creek over towards A Street, right opposite the breaker. Hardly anything left of that once massive breaker. Probably made a lot of noise with everybody working in it. There was unfortunately several deaths in it. A slate picker boy once fell in it, 18 feet, his neck was broken. So peaceful and quiet up here now, and at one time it was very loud. Dusty probably. This piece of pipe, metal pipe in the road here, took water from the creek to my left up into the breaker up on this side of the mountain. There might have been a couple more pipes, but that's part of one that took water to service the breaker. The boiler that was once in this breaker was sold in 1905 when they tore everything down, and the Northwest Coal Company had a breaker over in Einan, and they took the boiler and put it in that breaker. All this red ash here back near the site of the pay shack, according to Pepper, it was taken out of the breaker because they fired that breaker on, they ran it on coal, and they had to dump the ash somewhere, and it's down here. A lot of it probably got washed down. I'm not sure where the original pile where they put it was. Okay, we're downstream from where Johnny Luxmer fell in. The creek though has gotten redirected over the years. It's making an S-turn right here, so we're not really sure exactly where they fished his body out. And I know some of the floods they had over the years really racked this area, and the creek has moved several times. Looks like it's going down to the left that way too. Like I'm standing in front of a big island right here, and it probably looked way different back then. We're looking over towards the area where the railroad track took the coal out of Edgerton, one of the two tracks. All that remains of the foundation of Peter Stella's saloon. It was actually for sale in the paper 1905 after the town shut down. But being the town was shutting down, there was no need for it. It didn't sell, and it was torn down. The opposite side of the road where the pines are was the site of the Schust Hotel, the stone house. And this area was the site of the Schust Hotel. It's all grown in with pine trees now. Along this stretch of trees here were some private buildings. And there was a bunch of them there in the early 1900s, maybe 1902 or so. they caught fire. There was one building in the middle that wasn't insured. The fire jumped over that and burned all the rest of them down, but it was in this area here, and they were privately owned. And probably all torn down again after Edgerton shut down in 1905, but it was right in this area. Across from the pine trees, this field here was where they had cattle and whatever kind of animals they used. Chickens, whatever, and they kept them here in a fenced in this area. And then they had an ice house down back in this area, somewhere in there, where they would have ice for all the people in the town. And we did talk to a Mr. Jivatz a few years ago in Archibald. He was actually older than Pepper, and somewhere in this area he said there was a one-room jail cell. He used to come up as a kid and walk inside it. We're not sure exactly where it was, but it was down this area here. And that's the road that led out of Edgerton back down near Aylesworth Park, the original road coming out of the town. Okay, we're on the way out of Edgerton, and this bridge is in very good shape. We'll have no problem taking people in here for the tours. Okay, this small road here on the right is where the other railroad track came out with the coal out of Edgerton. And we're on the way out now to the gate on Meredith Street at Childs.